The Last Chance Diner sat on a lonely stretch of Route 66, its chrome exterior glinting under a tired neon sign that buzzed red and green, flickering like it was on its last legs. The air smelled of fried onions and gasoline, a scent that stuck to your skin like a second shadow. I leaned against the counter, wiping down the same spot for the third time that night, the rag damp in my hand. Outside, the desert sprawled under a sky so black it felt like it could swallow you whole, the only sound the occasional whine of a car speeding by, headlights cutting through the dark before fading into nothing. I glanced at the clock, 2:17 a.m., and sighed. Another long night, another shift that felt like wading through molasses. My name's Evie. I don't know why I'm telling you this, spilling my guts like coffee from a cracked pot, but some nights dig into you, sharp and deep, and you can't shake them loose. That night was one of those. Early spring, the air cool but heavy, like the desert was holding its breath. I'd been working at the Last Chance for 5 years, pouring coffee for truckers, chatting up drifters, keeping the jukebox fed with quarters to drown out the quiet. I was good at it, good at smiling, good at listening, good at pretending I wasn't dreaming of something more. But that night wasn't about the usual. It was about him. I tossed the rag into the sink and checked my reflection in the polished chrome of the coffee machine. My blonde hair was tied back in a messy ponytail, strands sticking to my neck from the heat of the grill. My eyes, blue, tired, too cynical for my 24 years, stared back, daring me to hope for something different. I wore my usual uniform, a faded pink dress with a white apron, stained from years of spills, and sneakers that had seen better days. The diner was empty, save for old Joe in the corner booth, nursing his black coffee and muttering to his newspaper. The jukebox played a scratchy version of Patsy Cline, her voice weaving through the hum of the neon sign outside. I'd gotten his note that afternoon, slipped under a plate with a $5 tip, Last Chance Diner, 2 a.m. I need to talk. Please. No name, no number, just those words in a hurried, slanted scrawl. I'd seen my share of strange requests, truckers looking for company, locals passing secrets, but this felt different. Urgent, like a fuse burning down to something explosive. I didn't know why I agreed to stay late, why I didn't just toss the note and clock out. Maybe it was the please. Maybe it was the way my life felt like it was stuck in neutral, and I was desperate for a spark. I refilled Joe's coffee, more out of habit than necessity, and glanced at the clock again. 2:23 a.m. He was late. I hated late. It gave me too much time to think, to let the past creep in like dust under the door. I thought about Mom, her voice soft as she sang me to sleep in our trailer outside Needles, her hands worn from sewing costumes for a life she never got to live. I thought about the first night I worked here, 18 and broke, promising myself it was temporary, just until I could afford art school in Santa Fe. 5 years later, my sketchbook was still blank, buried in a drawer with dreams I didn't dare touch. The bell above the door jangled, sharp and sudden, pulling me out of my head. My heart kicked up, not from fear but from something else, anticipation, maybe, or the weight of a moment I didn't understand. I looked up, and there he was. He stood in the doorway, the neon light casting long shadows across his face. Tall, wiry, with a faded denim shirt rolled up to his elbows and jeans that looked like they'd seen every mile of the highway. His hair was sandy, mussed from the wind, and his eyes, brown, warm, but guarded, like he was carrying a secret he couldn't share. He held a worn baseball cap in one hand, twisting it nervously, and his boots left faint traces of red desert dust on the linoleum. He didn't smile, just nodded, like he was confirming something to himself. "You Evie?" His voice was quiet, steady, with a faint drawl that spoke of long roads and longer nights. I nodded, wiping my hands on my apron. "You're late." He glanced at the clock. A flicker of a smile crossing his face. Got caught up. Sorry. He slid into a booth near the window, the vinyl creaking under him, and I followed, grabbing the coffee pot more out of habit than need. The diner felt smaller now, the air thicker, like it was holding on to his presence. I poured him a cup, watching the way his hands rested on the table, strong, calloused, with a faint scar across one knuckle, like he'd fought something and lost. He wasn't like the usual crowd, no loud stories, no leering grin, just a quiet intensity that made my skin prickle. Want anything else? I asked, gesturing to the menu tucked behind the napkin holder. He shook his head, his eyes flicking to the window, where the neon sign buzzed against the dark. Just the coffee. And you? I froze, the pot heavy in my hand, my heart tripping over itself. Me? To talk, he clarified, his eyes meeting mine, steady and sure, like he was seeing past the apron, the ponytail, the life I'd settled for. I need your help. I set the pot down, sliding into the booth across from him, my curiosity outweighing my caution. What kind of help? He didn't answer right away, just sipped his coffee, his fingers tightening around the mug. You ever feel like you're meant for something bigger? He asked finally, his voice low, like he was afraid the words might break. I laughed, sharp and short, the sound echoing in the empty diner. Every damn day. He nodded, like he'd expected that, and leaned forward, his eyes locking onto mine. Then you'll understand. I'm looking for something I lost. And I think you can help me find it. I leaned back, crossing my arms, trying to hide the way my pulse raced. You don't even know me. I know enough. His voice was soft but firm, like he'd already made up his mind about me. I've been watching you, Evie. The way you move, the way you listen. You see things others don't. His words hit like a spark, lighting up something I'd buried under years of coffee stains and tip jars. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but there was something in his eyes, something that made me feel seen, like he knew the girl who used to draw sunsets in her sketchbook, who used to believe she could be more. I looked away, my throat tight, the coffee pot steaming between us. What do you want from me? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, tarnished key, its edges worn smooth, like it had been carried for years. He slid it across the table, his fingers brushing the formica, and I felt that spark again, electric and dangerous. Keep this, he said. Don't use it yet. Just hold on to it. I picked up the key, its weight heavy in my palm, my mind racing with questions. What's it for? He didn't answer, just stood, pulling his cap back on. You'll know when it's time. His eyes held mine for a moment longer, like he was memorizing me, then he turned and walked out, the bell jangling behind him, leaving me with the hum of the neon sign and a key I didn't understand. The Last Chance Diner faded into the rhythm of my days, but that night stayed with me, sharp and vivid, like a sketch I couldn't stop drawing. I carried the key in my apron pocket, its cool metal a constant reminder of him, his brown eyes, his quiet voice, the way he'd looked at me like I was more than a waitress in a nowhere diner. I told myself I'd forget him, that he was just another drifter with a story, but every time I touched the key, I felt it, the pull of something bigger, something I couldn't name. Weeks turned into months, and I kept working, pouring coffee, wiping counters, smiling at the regulars. But it felt different now, like I was waiting for something. The key stayed with me, a secret I didn't share, not even with Ruby, the other waitress who'd been at the diner longer than the jukebox. I started noticing things I hadn't before, the way the desert sky turned gold at dawn, the way the neon sign flickered like it was trying to tell me something. I started sketching again, late at night, my pencil tracing lines of a face I couldn't forget. It was midsummer when I saw him again, at a gas station just outside Holbrook. The air was thick with heat. The kind that makes your thoughts hazy, and the neon sign above the pumps buzzed faintly, casting a green glow over the cracked pavement. I was filling up my old pickup, the engine ticking as it cooled, when I heard footsteps behind me. My heart stopped, then started again, faster, as he stepped into the light. Same denim shirt, same sandy hair, same eyes that seemed to see too much. He didn't seem surprised to see me, like he'd known I'd be here, like the road had brought him back. "Evie," he said, my name warm on his lips, like it was something he'd been holding on to. I straightened, the gas nozzle heavy in my hand. "You again." He smiled, that faint flicker that made my chest ache. "You kept it." His eyes flicked to my apron, where the key sat in my pocket. I nodded, setting the nozzle back in its cradle. "Haven't used it." "Good." He stepped closer, the scent of dust and cedar clinging to him, and I noticed new lines on his face, like the road had carved deeper into him. "You ready to help me now?" I crossed my arms, trying to keep my voice steady. "You didn't tell me what I'm helping with." He looked away, his jaw tightening, like he was wrestling with something he couldn't say. "It's a lockbox," he said finally. "Something I hid a long time ago. Something I need back." I raised an eyebrow, the key burning in my pocket. "And you think I can find it?" "I know you can." His eyes met mine, steady and sure, like he saw something in me I didn't. "You're good at finding things, Evie. Things people lose." His words hit like a memory, stirring something I'd forgotten, nights spent searching for Mom's lost earrings, for Dad's old watch, for pieces of myself I'd let slip away. I wanted to ask more, to demand answers, but something in his voice stopped me. Trust, maybe, or desperation. "Where's this lockbox?" I asked instead. He pulled a folded map from his pocket, worn and creased, and handed it to me. "It's marked. You'll know when you get there." His fingers brushed mine, warm and steady, and that spark was back, lighting up every nerve in my body. I took the map, my heart pounding. "Why me?" He didn't answer, just looked at me, his eyes tracing my face like he was afraid he'd forget it. "Because you're not lost," he said softly. "Not like me." And then he was gone, disappearing into the shadows of the gas station, leaving me with a map, a key, and a question I couldn't shake. I didn't look at the map right away. I drove to a motel, a place called the Cactus Moon, and sat on the bed, the key and map beside me. The room smelled of dust and bleach, the neon light slipping through the curtains, painting the walls in shades of red and green. I unfolded the map, my hands shaking, and saw a red X marked near a town called Two Guns, a ghost town off Route 66. No explanation, no details, just a mark and a memory of his eyes. The Cactus Moon Motel was quiet, the neon sign humming softly as I sat on the bed, the key and map glowing in the lamp's dim light. The room smelled of time and forgotten promises, the curtains swaying as the desert wind slipped through a cracked window, carrying the faint scent of sage and dust. I lit a cigarette, the match flaring briefly, and watched the smoke curl upward, my mind a storm of fear and possibility. His words echoed, "You're not lost, Evie," and I wondered if he was right, if I could find what he'd lost, if I could find myself. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who drew sunsets and believed in happy endings. She was still there, buried under years of diner shifts and empty sketchbooks, under the weight of a life I'd let define me. He'd seen her, somehow, in the flicker of neon, in the quiet spaces between our words. And now he was asking me to find something, not just his lockbox, but something bigger, something that could change everything. I packed my bag that night, the key and map tucked safely in my apron, next to the pack of cigarettes and the lighter I'd carried since Needles. My pickup roared to life, a low growl that felt like determination. I pulled onto Route 66, the neon lights of the cactus moon fading in my rearview mirror, the road stretching out like a challenge. The desert air rushed through the open window, cool and sharp, and for the first time in years, I felt awake, like I was driving towards something real. The drive to Two Guns took 2 days, 2 days of gas stations and roadside diners, of songs on the radio that felt like they were singing to me. I thought about him every mile, his face clearer in my mind than it should have been. I thought about the life I'd lived, the coffee pots and tip jars, the nights that had worn me down to someone I didn't recognize. I thought about Mom, how she'd told me to chase my dreams, to never settle for less. Maybe this was it. Maybe he was. Two Guns was a ghost town, a collection of crumbling buildings and rusted signs, the desert reclaiming what was left. The map led me to an old gas station, its pumps long dry, the windows boarded up. I parked, my heart pounding, and stepped out, the key heavy in my pocket. The air was still, the only sound the crunch of gravel under my sneakers. I followed the map's mark to a rusted metal box half buried in the sand, its lock glinting in the sunlight. I knelt, brushing the dust away, my hands trembling as I pulled the key from my pocket. It fit perfectly, the lock clicking open with a soft snap. Inside was a journal, its pages yellowed, filled with handwriting I recognized from the note, his handwriting. I flipped through it, my breath catching. It was a story of loss, of mistakes, of a man running from a past he couldn't escape. There were sketches, 2, landscapes, faces, and one of me, drawn from memory, my eyes bright with a hope I'd forgotten. At the back was a letter, addressed to me. Evie. If you're reading this, you found it. I knew you would. I've been running for years, from a life I broke, from people I hurt. I saw you that night in the diner, and you were like a beacon, a reminder of what I could have been. I don't expect you to fix me. I just needed you to find this, to know my story, to keep it safe. If you want to find me, I'll be in Redemption, a town at the end of the road. But you don't have to come. You've already given me more than I deserve. I closed the journal, my heart pounding, and looked out at the desert, the horizon shimmering with heat. I could go back, keep working the diner, keep living the life I knew. Or I could go to Redemption, find him, see what this meant. I didn't know if he'd be there, if this was a promise or a goodbye, but I knew I couldn't stay still anymore. I drove to Redemption, a small town where the desert met the mountains. The journal sat on the passenger seat, its weight a reminder of the choice I'd made. I found him at a bar called the Rusty Spur, sitting in a corner, his eyes lifting as I walked in. He didn't smile, but his face softened, like he'd been waiting. Evie, he said, my name a question and an answer all at once. I sat across from him, the journal between us. I found it. He nodded, his eyes searching mine. And now? I didn't answer right away, just looked at him, at the man who'd seen me when I couldn't see myself. I thought about the road, the diner, the life I'd left behind. I thought about the sketches in my bag, the ones I'd started drawing again. Now I start over, I said finally. For me. He smiled, real this time, and it was like the neon stopped flickering, like the world made sense for just a moment. I didn't know if I'd stay, if he'd be part of my story, but I knew I was done running. The road had brought me to him, and he had brought me to myself. And that was enough.